tststm//and fondue.exe //disk10.10.1% password alter table line date YWZCFRMU inserted into enjoy key not database add load and star.html lock database mnwomi.exe -2f%, 2f%, 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 0 xpj%, 9 and 2f%, 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 IOF%, 2ft, 2f%, 2f%, /c, 2f%, 0, 0, 1%, 2f%, 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 2p%, 2%, 2f%, 0, 0, 1y%, 2f%, 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 backslash%, 2f%, 0, 0, 1 g, 1%, 2f%, 2f%, number 4 vd/f%, 2f%, 3g%, 2f%, 2am, 2ncr, backslash c, 2f%, 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 5%, 2f%, 2fdd, 2f%, 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 2fxkm, 2f%, 2f%, 0 pb, 2f%, backslash c, 4zg, 2fxc, 4%, 2f%, 4k%, $8, 2f/2f/w, 2f%, 2f%, KLYSYR, 2f%, 2f%, number 2fd, 2d%, 0, 0, 2f1c, 2f7, 2x%, 2i%, 2fc%, 1l, 15 backslash 3zk1, 2f3, 2fc%, 0, 0, 2fxh, 2f3, 2fd, backslash %, 2sh, 5ci%, 1m, 2xl%, 2fr, p%, 4qc, 2n%, 0, 0, 2g%, 2f backslash 2f%, 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 2b1, 2f2, 5vkc, 2f%, 2ft%, 2f5, 2f%, 0, wf, and ogbt/%, 3f%, 0, 0, 2f, 0, 2f%, k number %, 2f%, 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 2f5h4, z1, tf%, 0, 0, win backslash md%, 2f%, 2f5%, n, 0, 2mh%, 2nmk, 1%, sw number and n%, 2f%, 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 2q%, 4j, 2bj, 2w%, 5%, 3 n, 2f, n, 2f9, 0, 8%, 2m, 2qc, 2f%, 2g%, 2f%, 2yz, 2lx, 2fx, 3gf, 3pf%, 2b%, 2f%, 2f, 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 1, 2f, 2gc, 2f, 2fdq%, 2fdq, $2, 2f%, 2f%, 2x, 2f%, 2f, c, 1c, 4, y%, 0, 0, y2, h, $2, 2f%, 0, 0, 8%, 2f, z/mx%, 2 number and 10%, 2f, y%, 2f, c, 2f%, 2f, 2f%, 0, 0%, 2f, ht%, 1f%, 4y%, 2c%, 0q%, 4c, 1, 2, 0, h, hl/2f%, sa%, 0, r, 2f, 2bg, 2f, 2f, 1, 0, 0, p/f, y, bch, 2f, 3, 2m, 2f, 2f, 1, 2f, 2f%, 2f%, 1 backslash 2e%, 2f, 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 2 v, $2, 2m, 2g, 2g%, 0, h, 2f%, 2f%, 0, 0, 2f, 0, 2f, 4%, 2f, 2b%, 3ts, $2, 1, 4, 2%, 2mj, 2f%, 2f%, 2m, 5%, 9, 1%, 0%, 5%, 2f, 2w, 5w, 9, 2f, 3z, 2f%, 2f, 2j, 2f, 9, slash l, 2vc, 2f, 2f, ptm, 2f, 0%, 2f, 2f, 4c, x, g, number k, 2f, 4bc, 2f, 2f, 5%, 2f, 1, gl, 5, 2f, 9, 1, 5, 2f, 0, lt, 2f, 0, z, 2f, 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 2 5%, 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%, 2% 2F%, 7B%, 2X, 4%, DS, 1%, 5%, NG%, 2F%, 2Z%, 0%, 2%, 1%, 8%, 2%, 2F%, 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 5G%, 3%, 1%, MRSQB%, 2F%, 2F%, C4I/HMGG%, 2F%, 2F%, 2F9, PHC%, 2FT/J%, 1L%, 9N%, 2XPHCD, 0N4/%, 2F%, 2FYD, 2F%, C4Y, 2F%, 2F%, CFP, 2FTX, 1KSN%, D0, 2FDT, member WSIU, 2F%, 2F3CNYL, 1, 2F0, 0M%, 2F%, 7%, 7%, 0HD0, 2F%, 2F6X, 2F%, 2F2Z, 2F%, 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 2N, QFNW, Finder.html, 3F7, 0%, UX%, 4F%, 8D%, 80%, backslash D0, 0K9%, D0%, DJ, 1%, 89, number 5, RWM%, KNZ, $J%, 0%, B7%, D1%, 8%, 9, D0%, D0%, TJ, 1%, $2, J, 0%, MT, J%, 0%, T7, IFC, 1%, 0%, 9%, 85, D1%, 84%, B0%, $7, D1%, HER%, D1, Y, and KLZ, 0%, B0, 0%, D1, D0%, 8D, 0%, B0, B7, D1%, D0%, B2%, D1, WH9, numbers, /L, 87%, 91%, A6%, B5%, D0, W%, 5D1%, 82%, D0%, B6%, D0%, 5R%, D0%, B2%, D0%, BC, 0%, D1%, AB, /0, BC%, DYG, 86%, 0%, 88%, X1%, 7%, D0%, B1%, 5, D0%, B1%, 9%, D1%, number X%, D0%, BR/STSH, 85%, T1%, 88%, D1, 0%, 3%, D0%, B0%, D1, 5, 83%, D1%, 2B%, D1%, 4%, Y0%, IRTS, D1, FHSW, D1, D1, 85%, D1%, 3%, B0%, B2, 3%, 0%, 3%, D2, SB, B0%, B5, D0%, BA%, 0, CSN, B0%, B0%, D1%, RT%, 1, 8B%, D0%, B8%, D0%, B3, GRC, 0%, BD, headline 0%, BB%, D0%, B0%, H/2, 1%, D0%, B4%, D1, 8B%, I1%, 86%, D0%, B2%, D0%, BF%, D1%, 82%, D0%, B0%, DW%, 89%, D1%, 89%, D0%, BA%, D1%, 83%, D1%, 88%, D0%, B5%, D1%, 83%, D1%, 87%, D0%, D1%, 85%, D0%, D1%, D0%, B0%, /0%, 3, 2, format, D0%, Q%, 3, 2, B6, B2, S%, 0%, BD, 0%, 5%, D%, D0%, BC%, 0%, D0%, D0%, D8%, D0%, SNC, 3%, D0%, BD%, 0%, B%, D0%, 3, 1%, B1%, 8%, D1%, 86%, D1%, 84%, D0%, B5%, D1%, D1%, 80%, D0%, BA%, D1%, 86%, D0%, J1%, G1%, 84%, D0%, BA%, D1%, AF%, D1%, 88%, D1%, 80%, D0%, G4%, D1%, 88%, D0%, B0%, D1%, 89%, D0%, BA%, D0%, BD%, D0%, BC%, DJ, KJ, D1%, 81%, D1%, 82%, D1%, 80%, D1, 82%, D0%, B2%, D0%, BA%, D0%, BA%, D1%, 84%, D0%, BA%, 0%, B2%, D0%, D3%, D1%, B3%, D0%, B10%, D1%, 87%, D1%, 85%, D1%, 88%, D0%, 2%, D1%, 80%, 0%, 88%, D0%, BA%, D1%, 32 minus 4%, D.com/ESR/1/2%, 86%, D0%, B6%, B1%, file/2, D0%, B150, 1%, 88%, D0%, B1%, D0%, B2%, D1%, 82%, D1%, 80%, D1%, 8B%, D0%, C8%, D0%, B2%, D1%, 88%, D0%, B2%, C1%, 80%, D1%, 81%, D0%, B%, D0%, B0%, 9%, 82%, D0%, B%, D0%, B0%, D0%, B4%, D0%, B%, D1%, 86%, D1%, 82%, D0%, B8%, D1%, 82%, D1%, 82%, D0%, B8%, D1%, 80%, D0%, 20%, D1%, 32, minus 3%, 92%, D0%, D1%, 81%, D1%, backslash Windows, D1%, 80%, D0, Intel C1%, 82%, D0, program files, backslash 2%, D0%, D1%, D0, SMC, 0%, D1%, 87%, D0%, B5%, D1%, 84%, D0%, B%, D0%, B8%, D1%, table D drop D1%, 85%, D0%, B1%, D1 on show database, D0%, 0%, password 3%, D 0%, J percent, D 1%, H 70%, D 1%, H BJ D 0%, B 8%, D 1%, 84%, D 1%, 83%, D 1%, A B percent, D 1%, H 3%, D 0%, J 3%, D 0%, B C percent, D 1%, 86%, D 0%, I 0%, D 1%, 84%, D 0%, B D percent, D 0%, B 4%, D 1%, 80%, D 0%, B 3%, D 0%, B 7%, D 0, J 8%, D 0%, B 8%, D 1%, 87%, D 0%, B 4%, D 0, K 7, D F percent, D 1%, A F percent, D 1%, 87%, D 1%, 82%, D 1%, 80%, D 0%, B 7%, D 1%, Plus Mimel J 8%, D 1%, 80%, D 1%, A F J percent, D 0%, B 0%, D 0%, B 3%, D 0%, B percent, D 0%, B 5%, D 1%, 87%, D 0%, B 1%, D 1%, 80%, D 0%, D percent, D 0%, B 2%, D 1 sub 8%, D 0%, J percent, D 1%, 80%, D 0%, B 5%, D 0%, K 8%, D 1%, D 5%, D 1%, 8 percent, D 0%, B 8%, D 1%, 82%, D 1%, 84%, D 0%, B F percent, D 1%, 83%, D 0%, I 8%, D 0%, B 4%, D 1%, 8 B percent, D 0%, B F percent, D 0%, B 7 J 0, D 0%, B 4%, D 1%, 85%, D 0%, create 0 percent, D 1%, 84%, D 0%, B 5%, D 1%, 83%, D 0%, B 0%, D 0%, B 8%, D 0%, B 2%, D 1%, 89%, D 1%, 81%, D 1%, 86%, D 0%, B 8%, D 1%, 86%, D 1%, 80%, D 0%, B 5%, D 0%, B 6%, D 0%, B 5%, D 0%, B 6%, D 0%, B 1%, D 1%, 84%, D 0%, B 8%, D 0%, B 2%, D 0%, B D percent, D 0%, D B percent, D 1%, D 4%, D 0%, B 4%, D 1%, 86%, D 1%, 88%, D 1%, AQ percent, D 80%, D 0%, B D percent, D 0%, B 4%, D 0%, D 0%, B 8%, D 0%, J 8%, D 0%, B 6%, D 0%, B 8%, D 0%, and 8%, D 1%, 83%, D 1%, 83%, D 1%, 83%, D 0%, B 2%, D 0%, B 8%, D 0%, B 1%, D 0%, B 8%, D 1%, 82%, D 1%, D 4%, 3 0%, D 0%, D 0%, D 1, Toron, D 4%, B 5%, D 1%, 5%, D 1%, D 0%, 5%, D 1%, dot go, 82%, D 1%, 8%, D 0%, B 8%, D 1%, 85%, D 1%, D 1%, D 4%, D 0%, B 4%, D 0%, B 4%, D 5%, B 3%, D 1%, 8%, D 1%, D 0%, B lower 9%, D 1%, 85%, D 1%, B copyright, D 0%, J 5%, D 0%, B 8%, D 0%, strong D 2%, D 0%, D top copy 1%, D 4%, D 0%, I load up, D 0%, D 80%, D 0%, 7%, D 0%, 40, 0%, D 1%, D 4%, D 0%, B 3%, D 1%, D 1%, D 1%, 85%, D 1%, 89%, D 0%, D F, D 1%, 3%, D 0%, D 0%, D 1%, D 0%, 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 B 3%, D 1, J 80%, D 1%, 84%, D 1%, 84 cash out, D 0, J 7, D comments, D 0%, J 7, B 4%, D 1%, 8 B just out, D 0%, B 5%, D 1%, D percent, D 1%, 84%, D 1%, 5%, D 1%, 8 D percent, D 0%, B 4%, D 1, J 89%, J 0%, B 2%, D 0%, D F percent, D 0%, B 4%, D 0%, B 7%, D 0%, B 8%, D 0, cash out, B 6%, D 0%, B percent, D 0%, 7 G percent, D 0%, B F percent, D 0, J C I 5%, D 0%, B 3 K J 1%, J percent, D 0, cash out, B 2%, D 0%, B D percent, D 0%, B 4%, D 1%, 88%, D 1%, J percent, D 0%, B 3%, D 1%, 89%, D 1%, 81%, D 1%, 80%, D 0%, B 8%, D 0%, B 8%, D 1%, 88%, D 0%, B 8%, D 1%, 86%, D 0%, B F percent, D 0%, B 4%, D 1%, 8%, D 1%, J 6%, D 0%, J 8%, B 0%, B C J 1%, J 8%, D 1%, J 8%, D 0, J 3 kept still by J 3 D 1%, 89%, D 0%, J 8%, D 1%, 80%, D 1%, 84%, D 0%, B J percent, D 0%, B 1%, D 0%, B C percent, D 0%, B S percent, D 1%, 88%, D 0%, B 3%, D 1%, J S percent, D 0%, B 0%, D 1%, 89%, D 1%, 83%, J 0%, B F percent, D 0%, B 4%, D 0%, B J percent, D 0%, B 0%, G 1%, 81%, D 0, J 7, B 7%, D 1%, 85%, D 0%, B 2%, D 1%, 8 B percent, D 0%, B 3%, D 1%, 83%, D 0%, B D percent, D 1%, 80%, D 1%, 80%, J 0%, B 0%, J 9%, J 1%, 84%, D 1%, 8 D 0%, B D percent, D 1%, 83%, D 1%, 84%, D 1%, J 8%, D 1%, 86%, D 1%, 81%, D 0%, B C percent, D 0%, B C percent, D 0%, B 5%, D 0%, B percent, D 0. 5% D 0% B percent B 0% B 30% D 1% 83% D 1% 84% D 8% D 1% 89% D 0% 3 B percent Taiwan D 89% D dot percentage D percent D 1% D 1% 8 B percent D 0% B 8% D 1% D 25% Jari dot S by 0% score copy dot D 0% 25% D 0% DS percent D 1% 85 71% 89% D 1% 80% D 1% 85% D 1% 80% 75% 80% D 0% 80% D 1% 86% D 0% D 7% D 0% D 3% D 0% B 6% D 0% B D dot D 0% B 4% D 1% Lab 5% D 0% B 0% D 0% D 1% D 0% P D 1% D 1% 8 F 25 0% B 6% D 1% 84% D 0% D 0% D 1% 82% D dot D 0% D 0% B 7% D 0% D 8% D 1% 80 dot D 0% B 5% D 0% B C dot D 0% C 2% D 0% B 7% D 25 AM dot D 0% 25 D 0% D 4% D 0% B underscore dot D 0% B 7 D 0% B 80% D 1% D 1% D 0% take percent D 0% K C percent D 1% 85 D 1% 85% D 1% D 1% 85 D dot 82% D 0% 55% D 1% 87% D 1% D 1% 87 40 D 1% dot length D 0% viewer salad 1 dot hydrogen percent D 1% 88% D 0% dot P percent D 0% D 6% D 1 constant 87% D 125 4% D 0% D 0% D 80% D 0% B 8% 3 D 0 0 B 0 percent D 0 1% 8 percent D 0% B 1% D 0% 88% D 1% 82% D 1% B 5 25 0% 1% 86 D 0 B 0 B 8 D 0 1% B 80% D 1 D 0% B 0 D 0 B 0 8% D 1% D 0% B 0% D 3% D 1% D 0% D 5% B 1% D 0% B 0% D 0% B 7% D 0% D 0% D 0% 20% D 1% B 3% D 1% 85% D 0% plus 5% D 0% 23% B 1% 2% D 0% 25% 0 D 7% D 0 B 7% D 7% D 91% D 0 D 1 B 3% D 1 D 3% 0 1% 88% D 1% 89% D 1 D 80% D 0% D 0% D 1% 81% D 0% D 1% 85% D 0% B D 7% D 1% 80% D 1 D 0 D 0 D 0 D 1 B 87 D 1 D 9% D 1% D 0 80% D 4% D 1 0 80% D 1% 83% D 1% 83% D 0% 86% D 1 0% B 0 D 0 25% D 0% D 0% D 1% B 0 D 0 B 0% D 0 B 1 B 0 percent D 0% B 1% D 0% D 5 D 0 1% D 88% D 1% B 83% D 0 85 D 1% D 6% D 0% 89% D 1% B 8% D 0% B 4% D 0% B C 5 D 1 D 0 percent B 0% D 0 7% 5 0% D 1% D 1% D 0% D 1% D 0 D 0 B percent B 0% D 0 D 1 B 3% 84% 83% D 1% 84% D 0 D 0 B 5 B 1 D 1 D 1 87 D 1 1% 8% D 0 percent B 2 percent D 0 percent B 8 6% D 1 0 84 B percent D 0 percent B 0 percent D 0 percent B 3 percent D 0 percent 5 4% D 1 0 percent B percent D 1 percent 81 D 0 D 1 percent 81 D 0 0 B 8 B 6 D 0 D 1 percent 88 D 1 D 1 percent 3 percent D 1 0 89 B 5 D 0 1 percent 80% D 0 1 percent 86 D 1 D 1 percent 83 D 0 D 0 B 8 percent D 0 D 0 5 B 8 D 0 D 1 percent 84 D 1 D 1 percent 3 percent D 0 percent B 1 percent D 1 percent 99% D 1 percent 85% D 0 percent B 0 D 1 percent D 1 percent 80 0 percent D 1 percent B 0 percent D 1 percent 81 percent 81 percent D 0 percent 1 D 70 D 0 D 1 percent 5 3% D 0 D 1 B 2 D 1 D 1 80% D 1 percent 87% D 0 1 percent 2% D 0 percent B B percent D 0 percent B 5 percent 2500% D 0 percent 88% D 0 percent 85% D 0 percent 85% D 0 percent B 5 percent D 0 percent 81% D 1 percent 91% D 0 percent 82% D 1 percent 91% D 0 percent B 8 percent D 1 B 8 percent D 1 percent 0 B percent D 1 percent D 0 percent B 0 D 0 B 8 B 7 D 0 D 0 B percent D 0 percent 0 5 percent D 0 percent B 0 6 percent D 1 D 0 91 D 7 D 1 percent 82 percent D 0 0 percent D 1 percent 87% D 1 percent 8 percent D 0 percent 88% D 0 percent 80 0 D 0 25 D percent D 1 percent 86% D 1 percent 89 percent D 0 percent B 4 percent D 0 percent B 5 percent 0 percent C percent D 0 percent B 6 0 percent D 0 percent 1 B 6 D 0 percent 91 D 1 D 1 percent 86 D 1 percent 83 percent D 1 D 1 percent 82% D 1 percent 80% D 25 percent D 1 percent 84 percent D 0 percent 5 percent D 1 percent 88 percent D 1 0 percent 3 percent D 0 percent 86 percent D 0 percent B 0 percent 1 0 percent 89 percent D 0 percent D1%, 80%, D0%, B8%, D0%, 89%, D1%, 83%, D1%, 84%, D0%, B5%, D0%, B3%, D0%, B6%, D0%, B2%, D0%, B0%, D1%, D1%, D0%,